Top Hezbollah commander Ibrahim Akil killed in Israeli airstrike in Beirut. We're gonna start off with Lebanon once again. Israel's been pummeling Lebanon pretty hard. After 2 days, or I guess like 3 days ago, they started doing like mass terror, and now they're also on top of that striking Beirut directly, and it seems like World War III is imminent. But I'm out here in San Diego, and we're gonna do debate lords no matter what. So let's get fucking started. I gotta pee as well.
The latest Israeli airstrikes on the Lebanese capital Beirut. That's according to security sources who've been speaking to the Reuters news agency. The Lebanese Health Ministry reports at least 8 people have been killed and 59 injured. Well, the strikes come days after a wave of attacks on pagers and walkie-talkies that left 37 people dead in Lebanon. Now, it's reported by sources in Israel the intended victim of those airstrikes was the Hezbollah operations commander. It isn't immediately clear if he was killed in the strikes that hit a southern suburb of the capital, Beirut. Well, let's bring in our international correspondent, John Sparks, for more on this. So, John, what more do we know about the target of these airstrikes?
Yeah, hi, Kamali. Well, it's been reported by the news agency Reuters, quoting 2 security sources, that a top Hezbollah commander called Ibrahim Akil has been killed by the Israelis. He has been wanted by both the Israelis and the Americans. The Americans said that he was involved in the 1983 US embassy bombing. There was a large bounty on his head. If he has been killed, it is another significant security breach for Hezbollah. The organization, it seems, completely unable to protect both its members, and in this case, if it turns out to be true, if it's confirmed, unable to protect their senior commanders as well. Let me tell you what else we know. It was a residential building that was hit in a suburb of Beirut called Dahia. In the southern suburbs. It's controlled by Hezbollah. Significant number of supporters.
Classic. That's Are you going to admit that San Diego is goated and LA is doo-doo? This is probably the worst time to ask me this question because like the weather is kind of shit too. This little girl is martyred in the process. Of course. This ray of sunshine is missing after the cowardly attack by the genocidal entity on a Beirut residential building, which lies in a notoriously busy area surrounded by parks and schools. May they never see a day of peace for the terrorism they have plagued us with our whole lives. I don't know if this is, we'll see. Once the dust is settled, and I don't mean that as a pun, but we'll see. So they just blew up a residential building to get one guy illegally? Yes. The answer to your question is yes. Okay. The answer to your question is yes, that's precisely what they're doing. They don't give a shit. This is how it is. This is just Israel plays by its own rules that America refuses to apply any rules whatsoever. So if they're completely unrestrained, why the fuck wouldn't they do this? You know what I mean? And killing like some fucking bombing suspect from 1983 means that, they're desperate for any kind of W's the media will give them. And I think this is like, they got a little taste of the phone explosions, like the phone and or pager bombs and the walkie-talkie bombs. And I think that they're just trying to desperately cultivate any amount of support that they possibly can. And I think that is what's going on. Like this is like a exit ramp, not an exit ramp necessarily, but like this works as a way for them to just basically say, hey, we're here. Like we're still doing good work. Look at us. It also shows that they are not confident in the pager bombs. Like, they're not confident in the bombing campaign that they put together, like the terror attack that they did for the last 3 days. Basically, they're not confident enough in that. Has the administration said that this was just and valid, or are they ignoring it? No, they'll say it's just and valid. This right here is seen as a more just attack than even the fucking pagers. Okay? Ultimately, it doesn't even fucking make any sense. Like, you're just blowing up like an 80-year-old dude in a crowded residential building. And, the question I always ask is, like, since a lot of people only see, Israelis as full humans, and anyone who's like Lebanese is simply collateral damage for the crime of being born in Lebanon and living near someone who is a Hezbollah militant general, or even like a Hezbollah parliament member, which is a civilian. I suspect that I need to play the same thing over and over again, which is like, how would you feel if they blew up a building in a Tel Aviv suburb where there were Israeli children near parks where Israeli kids play, right? If they did a targeted assassination like this and took out like an old, Israeli occupying force commander or some shit, would you feel like this was a just act? I'm sure plenty of people at this point would say no, like they're playing by their rules. Israel set the standard, so now they're fucking retaliating. But all of the people that are defending Israel's actions would immediately say, nope, that's not allowed. That's like completely fucked up. In
that suburb support Hezbollah. The building was leveled, was destroyed. The Lebanese health ministry saying 8 people killed, 59 people injured. And there are pictures now emerging from the scene of chaos, of dust, of rubble, of destroyed cars, of ambulances trying to get into the site. And it is very densely populated, this area. I think you could probably picture the scene. I can tell you over the last 24 hours, the Israelis have conducted more than 100 airstrikes, more than 100. In southern Lebanon and one in Beirut. This is the first time they have hit Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, since the end of July, when they assassinated another senior Hezbollah commander called Fuad Shakur. And in this conflict that both sides have been waging since last October, there is an unwritten rule that both sides try to avoid large population centers. That seems to be...
I mean, when has Israel abided by that standard? They've fucking struck Beirut multiple times at this point since October 7. The notion that they try to avoid and make their very best effort to not fucking strike crowded population centers is an abject lie. Okay? Also, that's not an unwritten rule. That is just like the rule of war, for the record. At least like post World War II, that is a rule of war. So the idea that they are trying to abide by that standard and just like failing to do so every now and then is pretty funny. We're not even talking about Gaza at this point. Obviously, this is a laughable notion when considering Gaza, which is doubly fucked up because Israel is a belligerent occupier of Gaza and all of the people that live in Gaza, and yet they're still ruthlessly and mercilessly striking Gaza. But Lebanon is a sovereign state that is outside of Israel's control. So that's the reason why there could be separate rules applied in this circumstance, but there are not, which is not very shocking, I would say, given that who's going to hold Israel accountable? Absolutely no one.
Falling apart. Hezbollah have been approached. They have been asked if this commander, Ibrahim Akil, has been killed, assassinated. They haven't confirmed it, but they have said that they are searching the site.
So, look, John, give us a sense, you're in Beirut, of how this is affecting sort of the wider public and how Lebanese society is responding. Of course, Hezbollah is not all of the Lebanese government. Is there any expectation that there could be a response or words said from the rest of the Lebanese political class?
Well, the ethnic and religious makeup in this country is both complicated and diverse. Hezbollah are the largest non-governmental actor in this country, the most powerful politically and militarily, arguably, but they are not Lebanon. Lebanon is highly diverse. Christian, Druze, Sunni Muslims, as well as Shia. Hezbollah makes up most of its support from Shia Muslims. So it's a complicated picture, and certainly there will be people who won't like what Hezbollah is doing.
Yeah, except what Israel is doing straight up gives righteous cause to Hezbollah in the eyes of the Lebanese population. But of course, you can't say that, especially after fucking they exploded pagers all around Lebanon. But you can't fucking say that because then it kind of, you know, changes the dynamic a little bit. You always have to keep up manufacturing consent and make it seem as though, and this is, they did this with Ansar Allah too. Oh, the Houthis are in the midst of a civil war. And then what happened? And then what happened? They took up arms against Israel. They started infiltrating and intercepting and shutting down the entirety of the Red Sea and closed down the strait, basically, effectively rendering the Israeli port bankrupt, right? And what happened in that process? All aspects of Yemeni society united behind the Ansar Allah movement because they were like, you're doing the right thing. And the same goes for, I suspect, Lebanon as well, because many Lebanese people still remember. Many Lebanese people still remember what it was like when Israel fucking invaded Lebanon. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're Christian or it doesn't matter what your background is. She's right behind you. What? Hasan, a girl behind you? She's right behind you? What the fuck are you saying? You all right, dude? Is it a TikTok trend? Oh. Anyway. What were we talking about? Yeah, ultimately, this absolutely fucking emboldens and unites. Oh, it's that fucking TikTok I saw. The mama, there's a girl behind you, and it's like a creepy ass girl standing by the fucking by the seaside. I've seen that TikTok. That shit is creepy as fuck, dude. I've seen that TikTok. I work at a bank, and even my MAGA Republican boss realizes the immorality of Israel's pager attack in Lebanon. That's actually genuinely surprising, especially considering that, like, I think most libs are more primed to defend that shit. At this stage, I feel like liberals just eat whatever the fuck the media is saying, and like whatever the New York Times is saying, they're just like so primed. They're so primed to personally reiterate those positions that it's just like impossible to get them to comprehend that this is like unconscionable. This is definitely illegal and an act of terror. Ow.
Fighting this war against Israel, these border clashes, which for the most part have been tit-for-tat strikes since last October the 8th. But it does seem to be...
Yeah, well, by the way, speaking on the tit-for-tat strikes, here it is. Israel-Hezbollah conflict, over 7,400 cross-border attacks since October 2023. People need to see this. Israel has perpetrated over 80% of the cross-border attacks with Lebanon during the past year. Hezbollah has shown remarkable restraint. Source BBC, and who is their source? Hezbollah's Ministry of Peace. I love that these people are just like, yeah, the BBC is a pro-Hezbollah outlet. Do you know any prominent Western media that's completely anti-Israel? No. The only media in the Western world that is like, to a certain degree, like, look, even while we're talking, someone commented on my YouTube video, my last YouTube video, watch your beeper, Hasan. Like, for a lot of people, I think this is simply just another way to reinforce the hatred and resentment they feel towards like Muslims, Arabs as a whole, like people who are in support and recognize the humanity of Muslims. Like, they just use that as like a catch-all way. That's the reason why that Republican freak was like, oh, you got a pager on you, as she was walking to Congress. And she was she met some anti-war code pink protesters who were like who were criticizing her and protesting against her, and she was like, do you have a pager on you? For them, it's like a celebration. They don't give a fuck that it's a war crime. They don't give a fuck that it's an act of terror. And that's pretty much it. Like, for them, it's just something to celebrate. It's the same exact principle behind like posting fan cams of and fan edits of like the American military or the American Navy or aircraft carriers and whatnot, to be like, the Houthis gonna fuck around and find out today. This is why we don't have healthcare. Like, they have nothing going on in their lives, so they basically use like American and Western imperialism as a substitute to be like, we're still the fucking dominant force, dude. That's right. It's the same principle behind fascism and white supremacy. Oftentimes, it's not like people that have a lot going on and no like real resentment in their lives that end up finding themselves in the throes of right-wing radicalization. There are people in this chat who, at a certain point, might have even been captivated by the alt-right, and that probably was their worst moments in their lives, when they just felt so shitty about everything that was going on, and this swan song like whispers sweet nothings into your ear, tells you you are actually supreme, you are actually destined for more, but you haven't been able to get it. Why? Because, you know, minorities. That's why. They are they're taking away things from you that you deserve. And I think that is precisely what these people are doing, but from a more liberal perspective. A lot of people don't put a lot of thought into it, and they just like reiterate whatever the fuck they hear. They just whatever the fuck they hear, they just repeat. And they think like this is a haha funny meme. And because people are so primed not to see the humanity of like Lebanese people because of the crime that they are Muslim and Arab adjacent, right? Like, that is one of the aspects that causes them to not really truly think critically about like what they're actually repeating and what they're actually seemingly defending. And that's it. But then there's also the other liberals who obviously also much in a much similar capacity to like white supremacist fascists who have nothing going on and want to feel better about like why things suck. And that is what I see so routinely, like people just being like, oh yeah, well, we're blowing up babies, but like it's totally valid because guess what? Like, that's why we don't fucking pay for healthcare, you know, because we're paying for the baby murder machine. So maybe hopefully that'll be worth it. I'll act like it's worth it. I'll act like it makes me feel superior and supreme to everyone else. The Mark Robinson thing actually had an impact on my Zionist dad. AIPAC and the ADL have not put out a statement. So-called Jewish anti-discrimination groups literally put out no statement on someone running for a position of power, fantasizing about being a Nazi. He finally understood that maybe Israel and Judaism are not exactly hand in hand. Holy shit. That's fantastic. I hope you can also convert your mom a little bit as well. But yeah, that's like a perfect demonstration. You should show her the Trump the Trump speech from the anti-Semitism conference, where he basically said things like, All Jews only exclusively care about Israel, and I've done so much for Israel. Why the fuck are Jews not voting for me? If I lose, it's because of you Jews. Like, that was so nutty. It was probably one of my favorite Trump conferences that I've seen. One, because it was like unceremoniously very policy dense, which is not something you ever see from Donald Trump, because that is one area where he has done a lot of things, right? In terms of like having a pro-Israel policy. Like, his foreign policy was hyper laser focused on whatever the fuck Netanyahu wanted. Her best friend actually loved this so much that she's no longer voting for Kamala, also Jewish. That's crazy, which is insane because the Biden-Harris has literally ridden the dick of Israel harder than Trump, to be honest. Yeah, but Trump also has like shown results for Israel. That's the difference.